so much to cover.
There is so much to cover, but then that means there's so much to edit. And I don't know if I've
Okay.
got enough time. Welcome to A Different Corner, a fantasy football podcast. My name is Manish Verma, and as always, I'm joined by my dear friend, Dr. Luman Ali. Luman, it's been a whole summer. How have you been, my
Yeah.
friend?
It's been a crazy summer. Lots have happened. Lots to catch up on.
Mm.
How's summer been for you?
So trying to work and do children's stuff because both my kids are at school and trying to juggle childcare whilst doing bits of work, figuring out where they are each day without being on the iPad is hard enough. Then throwing into the mix, actually trying to look at my fantasy Premier League team has been an impossible task. I have not looked at the FPL site up until maybe Sunday. So that's 4 days
Okay.
ago. I had not looked at it. I kind of knew the headlines. Haaland was 15 million. Saka's gone up in price. Salah is what he is. I kind of knew the big headlines, but I had not even looked at a draft team until like Saturday, Sunday. And since then, I've been furiously trying to do it whilst trying to do work bits, whilst trying to do childcare. And yeah, how has it been for you?
Well, on that, I've had a look, and you've not renewed our league, so you'll need to renew our
What?
league. You need
So
to,
look at that. Look at that. I've
yeah,
not
put that
even
on
done
a
that.
put that. No, same. I mean, one of the fascinating things for me is when we were growing up, we never got bored as kids. Kids get bored so easily these days. So, I think this is a fantasy football podcast, not a sociology one. So,
Yeah.
I don't think we'll get time to do that. But of course, we had some football with the Euros.
Mm.
Um, there's always excitement but I've taken a backseat from international football the last few years. I just find that the drama and the quality's gone. I think that
Mm.
um, the majority of teams, France included, who's got probably the most talented squad in the world,
Mm.
um, play a very defensive style of football because managers think we've only got a short amount of time. Well, we might as well play defensive football. I mean, when France
Mm.
won the World Cup in 2018, they had uh, two centre backs at full back, which is what Pep's doing now. They had three defensive midfielders, and they
Yeah.
were just relying on Mbappe for moments of inspiration. So
Yeah.
it was a joy to see a team like Spain win it because they played such good football. It was just
Yeah.
such good football, exciting football. They played through the middle, they played through the wings, they played it
Mm.
long, they played it short. It
Yeah.
was so good to watch.
They were the
Did
best
you
team.
did
The
you enjoy
best
the
team.
Euros?
The best team did win it
Yeah,
in the
but the
end.
best team doesn't
Absolutely.
always the yeah, unfortunately the best team doesn't always win, and sometimes
Mm.
when you're watching international football you see like a team with masses and masses of defenders packing the box and they win.
Mm.
So it was good to see that. So hopefully we'll see more good football in the Premier League this season.
Hopefully, hopefully. I have to mention we have to mention England, don't we, a little bit because of all the tournaments, this was the tournament, and I'm never really a kind of three lions on my shirt kind of guy. I've always historically loved watching Italy for some reason. Maybe it's their old Serie A on Channel 4, right? But this time round, I was kind of rooting for them. There's a few players I just they're likable rather than historically, there've been the whole Arsenal Man United thing, and I can't like United players. Whereas this
Yeah,
one, just the Watkins goal, there was a moment there. I kind of don't mind Phil Foden, even though he's a Man City player. Jude Bellingham is just this star, and Bukayo Saka, of course, I've got huge love for Bukayo, and he had a great tournament. So I was rooting for them, but you could see that they just were not good enough. Well, certainly compared to, I would say, probably Germany as well as
Yeah,
Spain. They really kind of crept through without being their best.
as usual, there was a lack of nuance and balance in relation to looking at England critically and Southgate. There was a lot of criticism of Southgate. Gareth Southgate's the best manager England could have possibly had. The
Wow.
reason for that is he's been the manager who's been the best at just keeping a level head in a job where it's just crazy,
Mm,
And the bottom line is there'll always be a sense of entitlement now around in England where they think that their record of one international tournament win automatically gives them the right to think they're favourites so they can win every tournament. No, I think Gareth Southgate overachieved. I think this squad is not as good as people think it is. I think we're very insular in England. We think we see certain players playing well in the Premier League, and then we think, wow, these guys are world class. But then we forget that season in, season out in European football against top Spanish teams,
mm.
more often than not, English teams, don't win. Don't
Yeah.
get me wrong, we've had our moments, but ultimately, and it's the same at international level. I think whoever comes next after Southgate's going to struggle. I think the only criticism of Southgate is that he didn't have a settled team, that he didn't make big decisions early, especially to do with midfield. He
Mm,
persisted with Trent in midfield when he's not a midfielder. Or if you are going to play midfield, you have to have Watkins who's going to make runs behind the defense, not a static Kane.
mm,
I think the only other criticism is that he didn't play players in their best position. I think what killed England was starting the same four every single game up
mm,
top, and you needed to mix that up. You needed to mix that up. So yeah, it will be
mm.
fascinating to see what they do, but the sense of English entitlement will never end, and it'll always be
I,
fun
I,
to shoot them
I,
down.
I would dispute that slightly. I didn't get the sense of entitlement this time round. I really get the get the impression, get the feeling that everyone knows we have only won one tournament in our history. We got to a final last time round. We got to a final this time round. So I think they see progress, and I actually think semi-finals or above would be classed as
I,
success. I don't get the sense
I,
that
I see.
from
Oh, I
fans that
see
they
it. I
should be
see it.
winning.
I see
Hmm?
it every tournament.
Oh, fair enough.
If you do a combined team, it's mainly England players. Maybe the left back of the opposition gets in, that kind of thing. So the
Too much.
entitlements there.
Fair enough. Fair
Yeah,
enough.
but
But
thank God it's
to,
over, and we've got a Premier League season to look forward to now.
we have, and talking about mixing it up, changing it up. There's a few changes to the game this season. I mean, a quick touch on that then, Lumen, about like wild cards, and we'll get into prices. But let's start with the chips first. What do you make of these changes? So the big one is that, well, the first one I suppose is instead of rolling
Losing,
two
yeah, transfers,
transfers.
yeah,
It's this five. You can basically hold off up until you've
yeah,
got five free transfers to make and do it all in one go. Basically, a kind of mini overhaul of a squad, I would say.
yeah.
What do you think of that? I'm
I,
interested in how it's going to play out, whether people actually will wait till five. Can you realistically do that?
yeah,
I kind of feel like it keeps people interested, those people who are on the fringes of FPL, like, oh, I haven't done my team in so long. I'll just go into it. Oh, look, I've got five transfers. I can do it now. I feel like it might kind of bring those sorts of players in.
yeah. That's a very, very good point. But I also think the maximum five will benefit the top players in the world who don't really have to make that many changes.
Mm,
I don't think many people will stretch it to five because that, if your team's not in a good position, you need to make changes. Like, you have to make changes. You can't wait to
Yeah.
make changes. So I think it will benefit some people, and I think maybe it will benefit everyone at least once, one part of the season, maybe.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think ultimately, you need to be. So I think 3 and 4, maybe you might see. Don't forget, people are always willing to take big hits. Some people do -8, right? So,
Mm.
and even though there might not be a -8, you're having to wait, and in that time, your team might not be doing so well. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun. And then there's this mystery chip that no
The
one knows
mystery
about.
chip. The mystery chip. Any thoughts of what would you like it to be? I don't even know what I mean, how I don't really know. I don't know. Quadruple captain.
I was just about to
Uh,
say that. I was just about to say that. They need to change that because the triple captain is not. If if Mo Salah or Erling Haaland have had a 25-point week and someone's captained them and then someone's triple captained them, it's
yeah.
not that much of a difference. Like, it's not. They need to make it more juicy. So that mystery
Yeah.
chip really could be anything. It could
Mhm.
be you could have unlimited players from the same team. It
Yeah.
could be any of that.
Wow,
Um,
that would be good one. That would be really interesting.
Here's
Unlimited
a
players
question
from one
for you.
team.
Here's a question for you. I don't know this, but let's say at the start in your first draft, you put 3 Spurs players in, and you put Solanke in when he was at Bournemouth, right?
Mm.
Then does
I
that
don't
mean you
think
can have four?
no, I don't think it can. I think it will
Because it's set.
automatically.
No, but
Yeah,
I'm saying it's set. Your team is set, though, isn't it?
I don't know. That's a very good
Would you
question.
get a notification to say you need to update your team?
I think you would because it would surely say you've too many Spurs players.
No, 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 no. I'm talking about you've picked your team, and
Yeah.
that's it. Your team is set, and then
Oh,
as you've changed your team, you've not done anything, and Solanke is still showing us
don't know.
Bournemouth in the
I
last
don't.
view.
It's a good point. Well, you've hinted at what your one of your players might be here, which I feel like takes us nicely to an FPL team reveal, the first one of the season, Lumen, for game week 1. I feel. Oh no! In fact, even before that, the most fun part of FPL team names, where we can get the best puns because you are also a master at this, and I know yours this season, and I think it's excellent. This may be your best FPL team name to date, Lumen. I feel like I don't know if it will come across audio wise, but certainly when you read it in text, it's really good. But if you could tell us it, then break it down for us.
So it's dire consequences. So we're talking about Eric Dyer, Esri Konsa, and Jarell Kwanzaa. And when you read it, it makes sense. So I was happy with that. I'm not going to lie to you.
Dire
Question is,
consequences. That's
yeah,
brilliant. It's brilliant, Lumen.
I don't. Do you know what? Right, I don't think anyone in the world has got that name. I can
No,
I can
I
say it.
agree.
I'd love it to be highlighted at some stage, but I'm not sure if it will be.
We're highlighting it now.
What about you?
I was going between a few. I started with Fury Dreaming. I thought that was an easy one, but then a lot have that. I'm like, oh, I don't like it when everyone else has it. Then I was going with Kai Hard from the movies, and then someone put, which was a popular one apparently, um, Old Havertz Kai Hard, which I thought, oh,
Very
that's
good.
basically what that's very good. And then I just went with the Die Hard Kai Havertz theme, and I just went with Yippee Ki Um, the
Very
following,
good.
the after
Very
that
good.
in Die Hard is Yippee Ki mother. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah,
So, and I don't have enough characters, nor FPL will probably allow me to have that one.
yeah,
So I'm going with Yippee Ki for my one. Gone with the Kai Havertz theme here. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm
yeah. You've sweeted me with that. You've sweeted me. That's very good.
at.
Now I know you mentioned about the big reveal. I think
Mm,
it'll be more fun.
Go on.
if we leave that for the next show. I think what would be good
What?
is if
Okay.
we. I don't know. I don't know. I
Go on.
think
What would you
I don't want it
rather?
to be a situ. I don't want it to be a situation where you mention some players and I mention some players. And, okay,
Oh,
but
right.
but what we can do is talk about each position and some of the big takeaways. So,
Okay.
I mean, we can start off with goal. I mean,
Okay.
goal is an interesting one
Yeah.
because um, you've got three choices essentially, as I see it. Choice one, you go with two choices actually. You go with an expensive goalkeeper and a
Hmm.
goalkeeper who's not going to start, and you just stick with that expensive goalkeeper for the whole season, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, last season's top goalkeepers, they didn't get the killer points. Ederson and Alisson did not get clean sheets, right?
No.
And even though Arsenal had loads of clean sheets, Pickford at 4.5 was the
Yeah.
top goalkeeper, so there is that risk. The second option is to go for two 4.5 million pound uh, keepers
Hmm.
and rotate, or a 5 million and 4.5. Or the third option, if you want to be really cheap, is go for a 4.5 million pound goalkeeper, stick with them, and go for a 4 million pound keeper. The
Yeah.
bad thing is, there's last season Areola, which you copied me eventually in having in. He was a 4 million pound goalkeeper who started. There's no 4 million pound. It feels like
Mm,
this season fantasy football, they've wisened up. They've like paid attention to preseason and they've
mm,
done things accordingly. But
mm.
that's what they've done. And on that basis, I've been looking at 4.5 million pound goalkeepers. I have had thoughts about Raya and a 4 million pound goalkeeper, but then I don't have enough money for the rest of the team. So,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
about you?
Uh,
What do you think about the goalkeeping situation?
the three choices you mentioned are absolutely spot on. Pickford has gone up to 5 this time round, so he was 4.5. You said last year, and he
Yeah,
was top goal scorer by a good 20 points, like 153 points, and then Raya second 135, so just short of 20 points clear, which is a big gap when I'm looking at the scores here. The question is whether Everton under Sean Dyche are going to still be that Everton where they are grinding out results and clean sheets. In which case, Pickford is a pretty good bet. I'm leaning away from Edison and Allison for the same reasons you mentioned. They weren't keeping clean sheets last season. Raya, for me, as a goalkeeper, as an Arsenal defensive unit is probably the most attractive one because all the other defenders are 6 plus, right? Apart from
yeah,
Julian Timber, and Julian
yeah.
Timber is the one who could be dropped. You don't know with Mikel Arteta. He's just signed Calafiori at left back, centre backs, position. Who's going to start there? So actually, the cheapest Arsenal clean sheet getter is going to be David Raya. So that for me makes him a very attractive option. Away from Raya, who is 5.5, if you're going budget, I mean, who are the 4.5s that are tickling my fancy? Now this is my bias of these sort of budget teams I like. I like Crystal Palace. I like Wolves. I kind of like Brentford. And so those goalkeepers, Henderson, I'm looking at. I do like Jose Sarr at Wolves, but Wolves, I don't think are going to keep many clean sheets. Flecken, yeah, possibly. Which of the 4.5 millions do you like?
Those that you mentioned, but also all the Chelsea goalkeepers are 4.5. So I think it's a case of keeping an eye on that and
Yeah,
seeing who starts. So I
yeah.
think this is a wider theme of my team this year. So my
Mm,
first draft, I've gone for a lot of tried and tested players. And the reason
mhm,
why I've gone for tried and tested players is because with certain teams like Chelsea,
mm,
I don't know who's going to play. So once I established that I'm going to have more Chelsea players at the back
Mm,
because they're budget options, etc. Right. The
absolutely.
other thing, the other thing I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be keeping an eye on the big hitters who aren't performing and sacrifice them because once
Yeah,
I'm able to do that, let's just say I've got a midfielder like Son in, right, who's
yeah,
10 million, and then I see he's not performing and I can see a budget midfielder performing. I'll get a budget midfielder in and I'll spend that money on Arsenal if they are keeping clean sheets.
yeah, yeah.
So
I can see the logic there.
that's
Is
what.
a
So
there is an unknown, especially around Chelsea, who I want to touch upon. Well, we'll probably talk about them a lot, but let's move to the defense. There are some Chelsea players there who I liked in defense, but again, it is who Chelsea are. That is a massive unknown, which brings me to the question: how much attention do you pay to preseason results? Because Chelsea have been all over the shop.
oh yeah,
Um,
yeah, I do. I do pay attention to preseason results and performances, and
mm,
Chelsea have been all over the shop. But the way I'm tackling it is the most expensive defender in my team is 4.5. I've got an ultra budget in my
yeah,
team, right?
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
know a lot of teams haven't. I know a lot of teams have got Cavadio, Saliba, 6 million.
Mm,
I haven't seen any teams with Trent in it with 7 million.
yeah.
Uh, but I'm gonna be just keeping a because last season, I know second half of last season, Arsenal went on a clean sheet streak, but last season the defenders weren't scoring points.
Mm,
The especially the top ones, right? And
mm.
even in the end, the likes of the Arsenal defenders, they finished off on points that historically were not great for top point scorers. So
Okay.
that's why I'm just it's a wait and see with the defenders.
I
But
mean, we just on Arsenal. Arsenal, the top three defenders were Arsenal defenders. Ben White, 182, and he was roughly 20 points clear of William Saliba at second, then Gabriel in third,
yeah,
149. Spurs, Pedro Porro at 136. And yeah, he's the cheapest there at 5.5, Pedro Porro.
now
Under that is Branthwaite at Everton, but he's got a big warning mark on him. What's he injured?
mm,
He may be injured. Groin injury, 25% chance of
yeah.
playing.
Now
Um, yeah,
the thing is, what you've just said there, those points were great value at the prices that they were last season. I
yeah.
mean, I think White started off on 5 million or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
So, but does it represent value for money this year? Like,
Mm.
let me put it this way: when Trent was on fire, people were spending 8 million because 200 plus points you were guaranteed. That's value for money.
Yeah,
That's if you're getting 200 plus points for an £8 million player, that's more than a lot of midfielders and attackers. In fact, it's
absolutely.
more than pretty much every midfielder and attacker.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. I'm gonna keep an eye out to see what's happening start of the season before I just don't have the money. I just
I,
do not have the money.
in my draft team I'm looking at right now, my back five, no one is also more expensive than 4.5 million. I have got four at 4.5 million. I think one at four. But to
Yeah, me too.
just to throw in this one though, Lumen, he had a superb end of last season. He's at 6 million. Man City's Guardiola. I mean, that
Yeah,
is one
is
where you're thinking, oh, it's Man City firstly. They're probably the favourites again. And if he's an attacking fullback, that if we could both be missing out on points if people go in on him early and he goes off.
he's just like every other player. He's the subject of pep roulette. They
He is
just keep
subject to
changing stuff.
pepper.
Unless I
Yeah.
see him play every game at left back, I'm not going to consider him.
Okay. The
For me, it's this. You know, early part of the season is a definite case of wait and see. You know, if I what I'm looking to do is I'm looking to have a solid rather than spectacular start, right? And then I'm gonna see what happens because
You had a spectacular start last season, though, Luman. You had a
I did, I
spectacular
did,
start.
I did, and
So are you not
Jared
taking that
Bowen
same
played a
thinking? Are you not taking that same philosophy from last season into this season?
not really. I just think that um, I think the big difference between last season and this season is the prices. Um, leaving aside Cole Palmer, the likes of you could have a team with Foden and Saka and Son, and you could have loads of quality top premium players. Even
Mm.
Bruno Fernandes was like, relatively all of these guys, but they've all gone up to a stage where you can only have one or two. So we've got us from a situation where you could have five of them. I'm not
Yeah,
exaggerating. You could have five of them in your team to now
yeah,
just two.
yeah,
So
yeah.
the prices, like I said, fantasy football, they've just decided, you know what, we're sick and tired of teams with like five of these guys in the same team. We want to see a lot more variation. So on that
Yeah,
basis, especially with the defense, it's a wait and see.
yeah.
Even with Trent, Liverpool, last season they were terrible at the back. They've made no transfers this year. Let's not talk about that. And what are they going to? There's no suggestion to say that they'll be any more solid this season. So that's why I've been apprehensive about putting Trent in, even though he's got the goal and assist there. But
How much is Trent? How much is Trent this
7
season?
million.
Yeah, see, he can. He's one who can easily just go off. You know that, and in that price historically for Trent is not a bad price when you look at how he can go up to 8. But let's not talk about the that top budget. If we're talking about our spending powers are at the 4.5, which teams are you liking in that 4.5? Because I think there are a few. If I could name Newcastle. I think there are a
Yep,
good 4.5 players there.
yep.
Actually, Man United have got a couple there, weirdly, at 4.5. I know United, we don't know which United is going to turn up, but there are some. Aston Villa have got some 4.5. Crystal Palace, in fact, the top scoring defender last season at the 4.5 budget was Anderson at 121 points.
Yeah.
And he was just under Trent for total points last season. So there's a few at that price range, but which teams are you looking at in that budget?
Well, Spurs have got loads of 4.5 million.
Oh, have
Everton
they?
as well. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, yeah. Everton. Um, West Ham have got a few. There's loads of teams with 4.5. It's just Man City, Arsenal, and Liverpool with the expensive defenders.
That's interesting.
They're the
That's
ones.
interesting.
But
Mm.
we're talking about all of these price changes. They've just exploded this bomb in midfield and attack. I mean, what's your thinking on the midfield? Like,
You know
what are
what,
you going to be
actually?
doing?
You know what, actually? Okay, so we know the midfield, if you get goal scoring midfielders, that is the most fruitful way of getting top points in FPL, right? Goal scoring midfielders, that's where it is. So we're looking at your Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka from last season, Son when he goes off, we know Mo Salah. So they're the big ones. They're the big. Foden, of course, came onto the scene more so last season, and they have priced them at top tier. We knew Cole Palmer was going to be massively
But
priced
not
this
this
season.
much. I mean, if I was hoping he'd be more like an 8.
I think that would be way too. He'd be in so many teams, and that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to make you decide now. They're trying to make you decide. So you've got obviously Palmer 10.5, Foden 9.5, Saka at 10. Son, I think at 10 is maybe a bit much. Maybe I don't know. Maybe Salah 12.5. they're your big boys right there. Then it drops down to
I've
Odegaard, Gordon, Bowen. I think
I've never
they're
yeah
making you decide. They're making you decide on two of those four, and then
five
sorry,
five.
two of those five. Sorry, two of those five. You can only have two of those five, and then fight it out amongst yourselves with the rest. And I think it's good. I like that. I kind of I'm enjoying it, right? You've got a
It's
50-50 chance now of scoring big when you're midfield.
but this is why I feel like I'm gonna have a bad season. This
Why?
is why because I've had a good couple of seasons with a very simple strategy. It's just go for the tried and tested. But the
Mm.
problem is the tried and tested is just too expensive now. I remember season before last, I had Haaland and Kane all season, and I
Yeah,
killed it.
yeah.
Like people were dropping Kane, I did not drop him once. I hit him
Mm.
all season, and I killed it. And I could, and in amongst that, you could afford other players, Saka, Son, whatever. But yeah, it's I'm gonna have a terrible season.
No,
I
you're
just
not gonna.
know
You're
it.
absolutely not. You're not. You need to find your new Bowen probably, because he was the one who just went off for you at the start of last season, and probably to about halfway of the season, he was superb for you, and you were paying attention to pre-season. You knew they were playing pretty much him in attack. But Bowen also represent. He's at 7.5 this season, and really like. I really like what they've done below that price bracket because right, we've talked about the big boys. You can probably get two of those five in. You got to pick wisely there. Week on week, it's obviously going to change. If Chelsea are playing I don't know, a Leicester at home, a Palmer seems like the obvious choice to make there. But what I really like is below even that 7 million bracket, the 6.5s are just juicy, Lumen. There are so many at that 6.5 and below bracket who I'm just like, ooh, I could just fill my team with just
I
those.
know I've had the same thought, but here's the but, right?
Mm.
I want to see how they start the season. I
Of
want to
course,
see
this whole this
look.
whole thing is a wait and see. We know,
Yeah,
like, Odegaard could go. I mean, Odegaard's a bit. Let's say I don't know. We know someone like Ward Prowse who started brilliantly. Okay, you get him in. He's at 6.5. Then he just dropped off. Bernardo and City 6.5. Kudus, who had a brilliant actually when he joined West Ham, he was superb, and he's not been bad in pre-season from what I can see as well. And he's at 6.5. It's all a wait and see. But I'm wondering where do you put your chips early on? Because Garnacho, I really like, and he's 6.5. I'm like, you know what? That's not bad. Gibbs White. Oh my gosh, Nottingham Forest. If there's one player who's their star man, it's Morgan Gibbs
yeah.
White. But how well
I've always had
do
a soft
Forest
spot
do?
for him.
Yeah, I
I've
know.
always
I'm
had a soft.
surprised no one's gone for him. I'm really surprised no one's gone for him. Dejan Kulusevski at Spurs, who's had a phenomenal preseason. I don't know if anyone has seen this, but he has been just in it for Spurs. And maybe Ange is getting the best out of him and will get the best out of him this season. I guess 6.5. Wolves, I just love Wolves and Gary O'Neill, but they've just sold Neto to Chelsea, who, by the way, is 6.5, but they've still got Huang. They've got a few actually. Sarabia, there's a new one who I did not pay any attention to until I was looking at results. And his name is, bear with me, not Jay Gomez. Oh, what's his name? Sarabia. I thought it was oh, I'm gonna forgotten it now. But there's another Wolves man who's come on the scene. They just produced them, and he's been on fire again in preseason. Again in that 5.5, £6 million bracket. So there's a few for me. I really like the look of. If I was being really brave, I would fill my midfield up with that 6.5 and below and be able to get in Haaland, but I don't think I can be that brave. I don't think I can be that
Yeah,
brave.
I mean, we're talking about 6.5 and below. Um, let's talk about Mitoma, who's back.
Oh,
And
yes.
he I know he got him in, one of the first ones to get him in. We
Mm.
need to see how Nkunku does. Neto,
Oh,
he's
gosh, yeah.
productive, but that's when he's fit. Then Doku's 6.5.
Yeah.
Savio, the new Man City midfielder,
Mm.
6.5.
And what's
Uh,
interesting about Savio, isn't it, that I saw yesterday that Oscar Bob has fractured his leg.
yeah,
So you would think, and as I understand it, Savio and Oscar Bob were fighting it out for that right hand side. That's now surely Savio's spot now. I would have thought. I would have thought. I don't
yeah.
know. You never know with Pep Roulette.
Pep
He might
roulette,
go and
pep roulette.
stick Foden
Yeah,
out there or something. You just don't
yeah.
know, right? Um,
Rodri was productive last season. He's at 6.5.
mm,
Garnacho is at 6.5. He was productive. Harvey
mm.
Barnes, who always has games where people are like, why did I get him in? Um, Kudus is 6.5 as well.
Yeah, yeah. There are
So
so many. There are so many at that price bracket. That you just. It's a really interesting one. That is. We've talked about those top ones, but that 6.5 one, you could get a couple of those in, and you could really go off. But which go off, I just don't know. I just don't know. Um, you mentioned Chelsea's and Cuckoo. I mean, what do you make of what Chelsea are doing? I thought it was just reckless last season, but it feels a bit just weird this season as well. I thought they were just going to splash their money one season and just work it out, but they're just gone on again. Neto, obviously, in Cuckoo's back now. They've just handed a massive contract to Cole Palmer, tying him down. I don't know what's happening in their goalkeeper situation. How many goalkeepers Chelsea have collected? What do you think of what do you make of Chelsea? Where do you think they're going to be at the start of this season?
I think it's going to be tough to say. I think they just got too many players, and I don't have the foggiest what they're going to do with their squad. I
Mm,
just think that um, it's not that they've got that many players; it's the lack of experience with so many players.
mm,
And it's a tough start against Man City at home, but then again, they do perform better against the top teams.
yeah.
Um,
But also on the
so
fixtures, they've got Man City. But then after that, for one, two, three, about 6 games, they've got Wolves, Crystal Palace, Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Nottingham Forest. You know, like that they're quite attractive fixtures, you would think.
this is
That
this
that's why
is
Chelsea are
why
bugging me.
I am happy to go minus points.
Okay,
I'm
fine.
happy to go minus points because to get them in. Here's a question for you, right?
Go on.
The only question, something that I'm grappling with. Who would you rather play? Bruno Fernandes at home to Fulham, considering he's back and his influence, etc.,
Hmm.
or Diogo Jota away to Ipswich?
Wow, what a good question. So you would have been paying more attention to Liverpool pre-season. So
Jota
what are
scored an
they?
amazing volley,
Okay,
and it's looking likely that Jota, Diaz, and Salah will be the front three.
that's the front three. Then I'm a lot more inclined to the job. I just like an out of position player on FPL. Morgan Rogers for Aston Villa as a midfielder, but basically
Yeah,
plays as a striker,
the
right?
the problem
Diego
with
Jota, the
the
same.
problem with having Jota as opposed to Fernandes is Bruno will play every game no matter what. Jota, whether it's through injury or whatever, right? He's gonna not play as many games, and that's a transfer. And transfers are precious this year. They are
Yeah.
very precious. So that's why I know that if Jota scores on Saturday, I'll be happy, but I'll also be like, ugh. But this
How
is
much is
it's
how what's the
fantasy.
price difference? What's the price difference? Bruno
Bruno's eight and
Fernandez
a half.
8.5, and
Jota's seven
Jota.
and a half.
You save 1 million though. You save 1 million. There's not
A
much in it, and
milli,
then
a
you save
milli,
a
a
million.
milli.
a million, exactly. I'm more inclined. I suppose the thing is, Fernandez is also a penalty taker, so that's the issue, and they're at home. But I kind of like Fulham. I kind of like. I don't think there'll be a walkover, and we don't know what Ipswich will be like. But from what I've seen of Liverpool results, I think your man Slot is slotting in perfectly. Is he or is he not? What do you think?
I think we're scoring goals. It's been a good preseason. But we needed defensive midfielders and defenders last season, and nothing's changed this season. And the fact that we haven't plugged those gaps is a concern. So we desperately need to do something in the window. But I doubt very much whether we're signing anyone now. And can you imagine, right? We go into the season without signing any players. The only player that we're strongly linked with that we'll sign is a player we're not even going to have for this season, which is a Valencia goalkeeper who we're going to send out on loan. So uh, I don't know. Liverpool, they clearly think they're special. I don't think they're special. I think there's only two clubs in the world this past summer who could have maybe got away without signing anyone, and that's Man City and Real Madrid. Real Madrid because they've already got an amazing squad. They don't they don't really need Mbappe. He's a luxury signing. They could have done with another striker, but they've shown that they've won without a top striker last season. And then Man City, they've got Pep, and as long as you've got Pep, it's crazy. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
But
But
you know what I'm hearing? What I'm hearing is Liverpool at the back, nah. But Liverpool going forward, a free scoring Liverpool, then I'm liking Jota. I'm liking
that wa-
obviously Salah.
that was you vocalizing the Drake meme where you say Liverpool defense,
Yeah.
Liverpool attack.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but the thing is, we're gonna have to see. Uh, there's a lot of rotation, so I would hold back on Liverpool for
Mm.
now. Wait and see. But we're talking about Man City, and
Let's get
then
let's get to it. Let's get to it,
yeah,
Luman. The big man up top. The big man. Erling Haaland. We know what he can do. We know what he's capable of. And then they price him at 15 million. Your thoughts on that?
uh, it's this. If it was, it's not that he's gone up to 15 million, which is the concern, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that the midfielders have gone up as well, and that's what's made it interesting. If it was 15 and the others were like
Mm-hmm.
eights and nines, then whatever. But that's what's killed it.
Yeah.
It's all of them going up.
At the minute, I do
Yeah,
not have Erling Haaland in my team.
yeah,
There is a way I can fit him in. At the minute, it's budget stuff, but I'm looking at my midfield and thinking, do I want to sacrifice that for
yeah,
Erling Haaland? And actually,
exactly.
my front three as well. I've not got really my cheapest striker is 7.5, right? Um, there is ways of getting him in. Here's my big Erling Haaland uh, dilemma. Of course, which obviously it's the money thing, but Erling Haaland every week has to score me at least one goal
Yeah,
because if I don't have Erling Haaland, I've actually got two players and I split my chances
yeah,
of getting a goal from two players. And at the minute, that is my logic. Why would I put all my eggs in one basket when I can divide them in two? The problem is Erling Haaland is capable of not just scoring one every game. He is very much capable of, in fact, a brace is probably what Erling
yeah,
Haaland should be scoring every game.
yeah,
So that's where I'm at the minute. My logic currently is why put everything there when I can do it when I can pick two players. I probably prefer if I'm now speaking out loud, thinking out loud. I think I prefer the idea and make it more fun for myself of watching two different games and having vested interest in two different players and two different teams and two games than all my worries and all my pressure on one game. And
Mm.
so kind of I think I'm almost talking myself into that thinking. The issue is FOMO. The issue is everyone is going to have him. I mean, what's
Yeah,
his current ownership at the
not
minute?
everyone's going to have him. With Haaland, I agree with everything that you said. Um, I think this is where Will Weston was ahead of the curve last year, where he
This is your work
decided,
colleague who smashed it without him.
yeah, yep, he at one stage he was like top 100 in the world without
God.
him, and 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 I think, but in order to do that, your players in other positions have to pay off,
Mm,
and
mm.
that's what it is. Um, put it this way: if you don't have Haaland in game week 2, you're just going to be sitting there sweating.
Because
Home
Haaland
game,
game week 2 is home to Ipswich. God. Oh man, this is the problem, isn't it? This is the problem. Oh man. Yeah, you will be. You will be. And actually, if you don't have him at the start, how do you get him in for game week 2? That you have to
you
minus
can't.
unless you basically you can't. So you have to have him in, or you just sweat. Um, okay, fine,
The,
fine.
the the
That's where
only
we're at
way
with
I
him.
could the only way I could get him in is by going -4, dropping Salah, for example.
Yeah,
And even then, let me work this out: 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Yeah, I'd have to go with a 6.5 midfielder.
yeah. Well, there's loads of them, as we've mentioned. There's loads of them away from Erling Haaland, Lumen. We should mention Ollie Watkins, 9 million. He was a top scoring striker on the game last season. Away from Erling Haaland, there's Kai Havertz, Dominic Solanke, we mentioned at the start, who's just moved from Bournemouth to Tottenham, who do need a striker, who is almost definitely going to start, you would think, with Son around him, with Kulusevski around him, with, I don't know where Richarlison even features
Yeah.
anymore. You've got then Mateta, who all of a sudden became
Oh,
just
don't mention him, please.
you had bad vibes from Mateta, unfortunately, last season. There are some other strikers that, I mean, the striker position wasn't as fruitful as the midfielders, but there were some, Cunha. Um, I'm then struggling actually after that. But who else are you liking, or which teams are you liking strikers of?
First off, I think that they've already been very mean with all of these price increases. They could have been meaner because
Okay.
Watkins at
Mm,
9, I mean, considering what he did last season, they
yeah.
could easily have done him 10 plus, easily.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But they realized that this is going to be like, it's too much. Like,
Yeah.
even they knew there's limits, right? And
Mm,
same with Isaac. Isaac could have been 9.5 easily, right?
absolutely.
But I think, would you be interested at all in Kai Havertz as a striker as opposed to a midfielder?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely, I am. He
Oh,
is what, £8 million. I think he is our starting centre forward now at Arsenal. I think he's a good. He just plays that kind of big man link up guy well. So whilst I don't think he'll be as prolific as an Erling Haaland or an Ollie Watkins, I think for one of what I'm hoping Arsenal is one of the top teams going for a title this season, he's surely going to be chipping in. And I think it took him most of last season to get up to speed. And then when he was on, he was on. And I just didn't get on him early enough last season either. So I think Kai Havertz is a fantastic buy at 8 million. I think it's a good one for a team like Arsenal who want to be pushing. You want to be getting the strikers of those top teams in. and he's a striker. I don't think Jesus is displacing him. I don't think. I think it's him, or I don't know. Maybe Jesus for the odd game when he has to change it up, but I think it's Kai Havertz personally. I'm a bit worried about Arsenal's striker situation. I'd like us to just to have a bit more, because I don't think Eddie Nketiah is going to
Yeah,
stay. I don't think. I don't think he's good enough cover either. So I would like a bit better options there. But yeah, Kai Havertz is an absolute, for me, is a very, very strong option there, as a good price personally. I'm
yeah,
interested also. I don't know why I'm doing this to myself. I'm interested in someone like Nico Jackson. I don't know why these Chelsea boys are just attractive to me, because I just know if they get their team right, and
yeah,
with this manager, I think they could do stuff, especially with their early fixtures, apart from the first one against Man City. I mean, even then, at home to Man City, you think maybe Chelsea could actually do something. And Nico Jackson was
yeah,
so inefficient last season. I just don't know if he can carry on being so inefficient. He just got in all the right places a lot of the time, but just fluffed his lines. And I kind of think he's going to be better this season. And he did get better last season, so he's someone else. Isak is the one where you're thinking, whose team is he not going to be in? Like at 8.5, I think everyone is going to have him. In fact,
Ye-
looking at the ownership right now, is close to 60%. So actually,
yeah.
that becomes a bit boring now, Isak. So yeah, I don't know. There are a few others I really like. Cunha at Wolves last season, he's only 6.5. So there's actually a few away from the big boys
Yeah.
where you could be like, you know what, I might try it here. And, and this is kind of why this is my favorite time of the whole FPL season, is right at the start, because it should be that everyone's team is really different, and no one has jumped on the bandwagon yet of any particular player. And there are so many good options, I think, this season that you can afford and some you can't afford, that I think it's so varied at the start of the season. And this is my
Yeah.
favorite time of the FPL, because we're all going to jump on so and so when they've bagged that hat trick and they're just scoring goal after goal, week after week. You can't not, because you want to win your mini leagues, right? But at the start, it's just so unknown, and I kind of like that. I kind of like
Lots to look forward to. I can't wait. And looking forward to how we've both done in the first week. Looking forward to seeing who you've got in your team. So roll on next week.
roll on next week. Game week 1, Lumen. We
We
will
will
be
be
there.
there.
We
We'll be
will
there.
be there.